Well, hello, it's Romania Black, aka Reggie, and I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. I'm here serving up some androgynous realness tonight as I'm Reggie, and we are on episode 9 of Jujutsu Kaisen season 3, and I'm mean. I actually love this wig a lot. This is a lot of fun. I as soon as last week was over, I was like, I want to cosplay as Reggie. I was like, I've got the fringe jacket, so I don't have to like staple a bunch of receipts together. And the wig, I got the little goatee going. We're gonna have fun with our androgynous realness of Reggie tonight. And yeah, so speaking of new characters, we've met Hiromi Higuruma, who I'm obsessed with. I'm glad the rest of the internet has decided to be obsessed as well, right? So we're on episode 9, and I have quite a few comments from episode 8 that we need to get into and spill the tea about before we dive into this episode, because I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried for our boy Yuuji, who is being put on trial by Higuruma's just insane domain expansion, because that all makes sense. Yes, so it's going to be quite the event, I'm sure. So before we dive in, we need to talk about episode 8. So thank you all so much for your comments. Thank you all so much for being patient, as I have been out of town and I just got home today so I could sit down and record. And thank you for being patient as I throw this toy for my dear, sweet, deprived dog who has been without my presence for multiple days. So, Tiny Truck for episode 8. I had asked what Reggie's tattoos were, and they said that the tattoo translated to indomitable, but Anime Annie added to that, saying that from what they could see, because they can read Japanese, the word pronounces into futai ten, which means determination or conviction. Which, you know what? Reggie having conviction and being determined seems very legit. I think that's very cool, so good on it. Midmat 44 says, interestingly, in the flashback, when I first saw Amai, I think we all assumed he was one of those bullies that was picking on the kid. But it turns out Amai is just a passive guy that chooses to not engage with conflict or avoid anything that leads to harm. This episode shows Higuruma and Amai juxtaposed of each other, with Higuruma being stoic and righteous, while Amai is cowardly and timid. I love the way that Gege is capable of writing characters to stand out despite having not a lot of screen time. It makes the story more engaging when the side characters capture your interest. And I'm like, Higuruma, side character. He could become the main character by the end of this, who knows? So, but yeah, Amai is interesting. I don't have a good handle on Amai. I'm curious what Gege is going to do with Amai, because it feels like we're not done with him, so we'll see. We'll see, but curiouser and curiouser. Alexander Q, alongside Anime Annie, said for episode 8, middle school Yuuji beating up the bullies to match Megumi's beating up of people that are jerks is one of the show's really fun dynamics, because they certainly needed more things to bond over, right? Although I would say Megumi was more of like the delinquent that was beating up bullies and kind of lording over it, whereas Yuuji was more like the I'll come save the bully, like a white knight style, but still same thing. Zero Anti-Zero said, now I want to give some perspective on this flashback. I'm not a lawyer myself, but a college friend is, and he's given me a passive interest into things. Speaking without judgment, Japan's criminal justice system would rub Americans probably the wrong way. First, there are no jury trials, like there are in the US, let alone compulsory jury trials for criminal proceedings. Jury trials are really only common in common law countries, and even there, they are partially or completely phased out in other countries. Secondly, and completely unique to the US, barring rare exceptions involving jury tampering, a jury's not guilty verdict cannot be appealed. It doesn't matter if the defendant confesses to it the next day. The verdict is the verdict. Well, that's okay. These led to a federal-state combined conviction rate somewhere around 80% compared to the 99.9 mentioned in the episode. Now, I think we're being led to believe that this rate is the result of corruption, and I won't discount that there might be some, but the only way to achieve a near-perfect conviction rate is by dropping cases that aren't sure things. They never even go to trial. If I were in Higuruma's shoes, knowing that it's all but hopeless, I would be destroyed. For that, I admire his perseverance. But he's definitely cracked there at the end. Finally, I do think Gege has an issue with Japan's criminal justice system, and he was partially using Higuruma as a means to criticize it. I'm betting any prosecutors watching JJK are grinding their teeth. Well, that's what I said in the discussion. I was like, Gege just looked at his editors and went, hey, we're like, I don't know, 20 volumes into this thing. I'm pretty popular at this point. I don't think they're gonna shut down my manga. Can we start talking about the criminal justice system in Japan? And the editors were like, sure! Anime Annie, for episode 8, says, your thoughts as we were seeing Higuruma as a lawyer matched mine. He seems so fair. So what happened that resulted in him killing people to gain 100 points in the culling game? He really is like a dark-haired Nanami. Just while he is a little jaded about life and society in general, Higuruma seems to have little hope that justice would prevail, or whereas Nanami in his salaryman era was a lot more hopeless. You know, that's very true. Nanami was a lot more hopeless in that era, so that's a good point to bring up. Then Anime Annie says that I feel having Reggie and Fushiguro's conversation happening at the same time helps to ramp up the tension with the realization that Tengen's beliefs for Kenjaku's plan with the culling game may just be one of their fallback plans. And as such, we remain in the dark about what Kenjaku's actual desired outcome from creating these culling games could be. It's interesting that we're supposed to believe Tengen is like kind of an all omniscient force and they may have it wrong. So that's messing with me in ways. So fun times. And then finally, La Villa Love has a comment here that I want to talk about. Saying, as it turns out, Higuruma's pin is not a brooch, but an attorney's pin, though your observation of it being a flower is not incorrect. The pin is shaped in the form of a sunflower, with scales in the middle, which is a real thing that Japanese attorneys wear. I find the symbolism of the sunflower in this context quite nice. Just as the sunflower looks towards the sun, so does the lawyer look towards the truth and justice, or, well, they're supposed to. Higuruma could be another name for sunflower as well, so it's quite fun. A very flowery man he is. That's why I found it amusing when you mentioned before that the name Hiromi reminded you of Hiromi from Skate, another guy associated with flowers. So honestly, roses and sunflowers are my favorite flowers. I would say in my top 3. It's like roses, sunflowers, and tiger lilies. Those are like the 3 main ones. So I'm all about a sunflower motif. And they said, I'm going to be quick about the domain expansion scene. The red color scheme, it makes the water in the bathtub look like blood, which makes the visual of Higuruma laying in it quite striking. Literally bathing in the blood he spilled, not even washing it off like Yuuji did at the start of the season. And I'm like, oh, we love to see a callback! We love to see a full circle parallel symbolic moment! So yes, I love it. I love it so much. But yes, I have been eagerly, y'all, waiting to get to this episode. And here we are. So fun times. I hope you all enjoy my cosplay as Reggie. I hope you all don't mind my dogs at my feet. I hope you all continue to comment and share your thoughts about these episodes because they're so much fun to read. And so far people have not been too spoilery, so that's exciting. But in any case, we need to get started. Okay, so we're going to start at 1 minute and 29 seconds. It started right with the OP, but I skipped ahead to 1 minute and 29 seconds because Crunchyroll has deleted the skip intro button. Thank you. So, without further ado, Reggie, as Romania Black, is going to be checking out episode 9 of season 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen, and we're going to get that started here in 3, 2, 1, and let's see what fun has in store for us. Ha-ha! You can't have Higuruma being gone already! No! We just met him last week! Gege! What? When I find you, Gege! Look. Do I think that Higuruma is gone forever? No. There is no way that Gege Akutami would introduce a character that is that badass and that amazing and just have them not be in the story after 2 episodes worth of content. No. Now, does Gege immediately understand that Higuruma is kind of OP as hell? Yeah. And do I think that Higuruma is going to go off and saunter away for a little while and then just be like, yeah, it's fine. We don't have to use each other's techniques for 19 days. We're okay. Sure. I feel like Gege is playing the game now of, hey, I introduced this really OP cool character. I'm going to have them go away for a while until it is convenient and necessary that they return. So we'll see how that goes. And now that we know how their technique works, and their domain expansion works, then it's going to, create more opportunities to see that expanded upon again. Because I don't think we've seen the last of that trial. No. I don't think we've seen the last of it at all. Not one bit. So they just knew. Gege just knew all the fangirls would be like just geeking out and gagging over Higuruma. And they're like, we're going to have to make him leave now. And it's like, mother truckers, whatever. Okay. It's a good episode when Mappa redoes the same scene that they just showed you a week ago from a different perspective with new animation. That's when it's going to start out good, right? So let's go ahead and get it started here and get, I didn't know whether I should bring Whiteboard-kun out or not, but I think there are some things I want to write down on Whiteboard-kun, so we'll keep them out here. But yeah, here in 3, 2, 1, like the rare use of blue in this episode to do Higuruma and Yuuji for this domain expansion, looking a little bit like the aqua, the water there. You can see like the water reflection on Yuji's face. I'm amazed Sukuna didn't come out. I think if Higuruma had actually gone through and like struck Yuuji with the sword, even though it said that you will die, most certainly, would that just mean that Yuuji dies, but Sukuna could come out kind of like when he ripped his heart out? Leaving questions to be answered, so we shall see. Interesting. I do love that shot with the two, like the blue and the light that looks like they're bathed underwater. That's such a pretty shot. That's so gorgeous. And Yuji's like, sure, I'll defeat him, but no, didn't get to him. I liked the fact that the gavel was imbued with the same type of cursed energy that Yuji gets imbued with. I thought that was pretty cool. Again, showing that these two are very similar indeed. And he's like, all acts of violence are prohibited in this space. That's kind of cool. I'm enjoying this. So we find out from Tengen. Tengen happened to explain to Yuji that in the days of old, before the sorcerers became like hyper evolved, that most of the sorcerers that had domains, they were a lot more, I don't want to say simple domain because that makes me think of Miwa, but they were basically domains that had restrictions that would limit physical violence. Limiting physical violence or creating stipulations where you couldn't get hurt within them. So in the case of Higuruma's, within his domain expansion, which now it makes sense why the one helicopter guy got out. He just got the shit beat out of him after he was put on trial. Makes sense. So at the domain expansion, there is a trial, which we will talk about in this. But essentially, it's to weigh and create like a judgment that Higuruma kind of gets to be in charge of. For both of us. Yeah. And he's like, oh, sorry. Oh, Yuji is just so sweet. And they're like, harmful remarks are the exception. So, Judge Man, please begin. I love the sunshine shining down as he's the attorney. It's so good. So, we start out with the most basic of crimes. They're accused of entering the Maji Vegas pachinko parlor in Sendai City on July 16th, 2017 as a patron, despite being under 18 at the time. And he's like, yes. Here's the thing that's crazy. This is the thing that's crazy, though, about all of this, is that with Yuji's crimes, so if we put up Yuji's crimes here, it was like, if we went from pachinko parlor straight to Shibuya. The thing that's the saddest about the whole situation to me is that later on, whenever him and Higuruma, we'll talk about that scene where he's like, well, did you actually ever kill someone? And Yuji's like, yeah, I did. And he's like, it feels awful, doesn't it? And he's like, yeah. And we'll talk about that scene by itself. But the thing is, the Judge Man didn't recognize that. Because what the murder that they're talking about is either one of two things. It's either talking about Esso and Ketchizu, which Yuuji did directly have a hand in killing both of his brothers. So it's either them, or it's the transfigured humans that were there when him and Nanami were attacking based on what Mojito had done. And then there's Mojito, but that's adjacent. But I'm assuming that Yuuji is thinking of either Ketchizu and Esso or the transfigured humans. But in both of those scenarios, the Judgment didn't bring up those. They brought up Shibuya, which was not Yuji's fault. It was Sukuna. And they brought up the pachinko parlor. It skipped the other things. So the thing that Yuuji is most sad about in this case is not even something that the Judgment recognizes as a crime, which I think is interesting in the overall grand scheme of all of this. So I think that that's just interesting to bring up. The Judgment knows everything about those within the domain. I love poor Yuuji is just struggling over there being like, I can't wait to get into this in the manga. This is going to be so much fun to read. When he's just like, oh no. And he's like, And he's like, well, you see, and he's like, well, but don't. I like that Higuruma is basically trying to talk him down throughout this entire scene. He's like, don't worry. Like, Higuruma, he's like, that information isn't shared with me. Literally, we've talked about this in the Discord, but Higuruma and Nanami would have been such friends. They would have been like just both fawning over Yuuji, and it's so sad. The verdict will be decided based on the arguments we present. He's like, we're going to have a debate, which I am all about, with the sole exception of this evidence. And Yuuji's like, when'd you get a manila envelope? Well, how can your domain create manila envelopes? This is the evidence provided by the Judgment for this case. So I like that there's no guarantee that this will confirm the charge. You have to present your argument to clear suspicion. So neither of them know what's in the envelope. The envelope could be anything. It could be the most damning evidence possible. So it's kind of like, it's testing how much your bluff is. It's also testing how much you truly believe you're guilty, how much you think you can get away with it. It's an interesting setup, but I like the idea that there's the trial. And in this case, Higuruma is the prosecutor and also the judge. Together, he's being the two things he wasn't in real life, which is kind of like, it's sort of like a power fantasy in an interesting way with this domain expansion. And then you have Yuuji, who is the defendant, and then there is the piece of evidence that neither of them really know what it's going to be. The Judgment's the only one that knows what it is, and like in the case of the pachinko parlor, it's a photo. So it's not really something that's too incredibly damning, but his excuse doesn't work for the photo. And so then Yuji's like, oh, so he really was a defense lawyer. Okay. But in this domain, it's like what Tengen-sama said. These used to be, they lacked the guaranteed kill element. Most modern domains deadly guarantee attack. I like the idea that as fewer sorcerers were able to do the domain expansions, the more deadly that they got. Something that's interesting with that is because Kenjaku has introduced all of these newer sorcerers, they don't have like the one-hit KO domain expansions if they have any. They have some that are set up like this. So that's interesting. I don't know. There's just something about the fact that Kenjaku is, it adds kind of like to Kenjaku, like, I don't want to say helping the situation, but it's an interesting turn of events. Again, that's very interesting. I don't know what to make of that. But yeah, so he's like, there's not any lethality, and there's explanation of rules. Yuji's like, we can figure this out. We can make a statement, we can get out of this. And he's like, you get a chance to make a statement, and I get a chance to make a rebuttal using the evidence. So it's essentially a debate. I coach this stuff. This stuff is fun. I really wish I was getting really excited, thinking we were going to really tie into this debate. And I was waiting for it to like get even more in depth, but then we had to be all an action shonen, I guess, and have some of the most amazing animation in the series so far. So that was fun. So yeah, what happens if I'm judged guilty? He's like, well, I don't have any obligation to answer that question. And the reason is because it will depend on the verdict. You can either be quiet, you can confess, or you can deny. And your denial can include false statements. And Yuji's like, you can lie in court, and he's like, if you couldn't, there'd be no need for trials. I like that there's such a, like, Higuruma is so pissed as he says that. He's like, I know. It shouldn't be that way, but here we are. You know? I love this. The judge man is not very patient. The judge man, for the record, looks like the damn Care Bears book. If we're going to talk about the Care Bears mission, if any of y'all have seen the Care Bears movie from the 1980s, that damn book, that old Nicholas, which for some reason, if this was the Netflix original movie and it was like the bastardized American version, I feel like Higuruma's name would be Nicholas. But yeah, that damn book in that Care Bears movie, that face of that judge is the book. Nicholas. Like, that's literally it. He's like, well, I did go into the pachinko parlor and I think I even won some games. He's like, oh shit. He's like, I can't avoid lying if I'm going to claim my innocence. So naturally, he's like, maybe I could, go around the evidence and see, like, what do I do? I love this chibi of him, like, as a kid. He's like, well, what if the evidence doesn't prove I entered the parlor and it's all just a misunderstanding? And he's like, no. Like, it's like a silent film. Or two, the evidence proves that I entered it. I like the guillotines, like, sliding as each transition happens. He's like, what should I gamble on the excuse to earn leniency? Or, maybe I'm digging my own grave if I admit that I was actually there. But what if the evidence proves? And he's like, and then I just said, beg for forgiveness. Like, do I confess? Like, what do I do? And he's like, I entered the pachinko parlor because I suddenly needed to poop. And had no choice but to borrow their bathroom. I love the Higuruma's like, really? Really, bitch? What are you, 18? Hilarious. He's like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, well, here's the photo taken from the antique shop. He's like, really? You took a shit and that's your excuse? I just love his expression. It's amazing. God. I even like that they kind of use the animation style from season 1, which is great. Don't you think this all but matches you? You're the only one with pink hair around. Yuji's like, well, son of a bitch, not good. He's like, as you can see, that version of me did not have those scars, so clearly not me. Oh my God. And he's like, oh, well, what crime would that be? The parlor explicitly prohibits minors from entering. And he's like, how dare you know? He's like, that's not fair. Should I have gone with option 3? And so then he's like, well, you did not choose the right thing to do, but of course he does like the Reagan push the hair back. Like, what? Oh my God, Nanami, Reagan, this man, all in the same. Romania has a type. That shot, what a money shot. What a freaking money shot. Shut up. Amazing. So, the judge man gives the guilty confiscation, but this crime is not that heavy, so it's just taking away cursed energy. So, I think it is worth noting that we now have this domain allows a stripped technique to happen, which is similar to what angels supposedly can do. So there's that. But also, if the technique can't be stripped, then it can take cursed energy away. That feels dangerous in itself. I don't know. I was really grateful that Sukuna did not come out. I'm wondering, how in the hell did Higuruma know about Sukuna? How did he know about him? Who told him about him? He's been doing his research, but has he ran into somebody that told him about him? That's the problem. Is my big question with this is, how did Higuruma know about Sukuna? Like, how did he know? Who told him? Because, unless he just found a bunch of books in the last 12 days about sorcerers and read about Sukuna, which is possible, but how do you know he's with Yuuji? They didn't bring out any evidence in the second trial that told that information, so how did he know? That's the only big cure. And even Yuuji was asking him, and he didn't really give an answer. So we might go back and see if we collected anything there. But I honestly expected Sukuna to come out, but the fact that he didn't in this episode, and that Higuruma's like, oh, I'm conveniently going to leave the scene right now. I don't know. It's just, I feel like having Sukuna on trial would be so crazy, but immediately it would be like the thing would scream death sentence and he'd have the sword immediately. So I don't know. I feel like we're not done seeing Higuruma yet by a landslide. So I'm like, what are we going to do? What are we going to get? What? I don't know. The fact that we're already done this episode is so insane to me. But I loved the animation. It was so good. Also, reminded me of Amy Rose from Sonic the Hedgehog with that giant gavel as a mallet. Look, I said I need to see a bunch of Higurumas at cosplay and anime conventions this summer. I need somebody to make a giant ass foam gavel walking around as Higuruma. I need to see it. Please do it. I will go as Reggie and have a receipt jacket being made if y'all can do that. I need that to happen because that's so crazy. Yeah. He can make the gavel appear and alter its size as well. And he's like, more importantly, he's like, how do you manage to do all this? He's like, you're tough. He's like, it's the one thing I've got going for me is that I'm really hard to hurt. Oh. So, then we cut to this one shot of Higuruma as a kid. So, well, as a grown-up. He's like growing up. So we see him like in that shot, law apprenticeship period 59. And then we see him like in his apprenticeship, age 36, Hiromi Higuruma. We're about the same age. Bless his heart. And we see him like going through all of the seasons. Like doing the same, like he's very much a person of habit. And we see like, are these all his scores and everything on everything? He straightforwardly cleared all the obstacles, like the entry exam into this University School of Law. Damn, why does it gotta be so good looking? Just why? It was a simple task. Yep. Of inputting and outputting the necessary knowledge. It was just routine. It was just something, all he had to do was just do the damn thing, right? Everyone whispered that he was a genius. And then, yet the stone gem that shone the brightest was his talent as a sorcerer. Because that's the thing. Like, it's kind of like, I love the concept of becoming a sorcerer for Higuruma is like freeing to him because it's applying all of this in a way that like he's able to use for himself. But yeah, his like a freaking prodigy. The fact that he also Mappa, like stop, just insane animation. But the fact that he was able to master a domain expansion immediately, instantly, the moment he got his technique, the expansion came with it, right? But also figured out how barriers worked, figured out how techniques worked, figured out like everything that came along with it. I'm like, insane. Like Gojo would be proud. Gojo would be impressed. Yeah. I kind of want to see Higuruma versus Gojo now. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how much that would work, but I'm intrigued. Yeah. And grasp, manipulating curse energy for physical enhancement. Like, that's in 12 days! Within 12 days! Like, just insanity. Like, he had matched a grade 1 sorcerer. That's absolutely insane. Just, what? Watch this be like one page in the manga that Mappa just decided to animate the shit out of. And then before coming to the colony, he exercised all these curse spirits. Wild. Yeah, like the shot with Yuuji when he slung back in the chair and then flipped it up. I'm sorry, what? That just so freaking cool. So freaking cool. Like, and the kick. Like, when did this guy have time? Yep, and struck down 20 players who had attacked him. Okay. Yep. Insane. Insane. Like, which, here's the thing. Higuruma's killed 20 people. He killed 20 people for the points. And Yuuji had killed, like, Esso and Ketchizu, too. And then the transfigured spirits, which could have been, like, a dozen or so. So maybe that's going to add up to be the same amount. What got me was at the very end, he said the 2 points that he had actually like started with were the 2 points from the judge and the prosecutor that he killed with the gavel from the beginning. And you have like his first 2 kills that were his own, and then Eso and Ketchizu, which were Yuji's first 2 kills that were his own. So they're both kind of matched in that sense, and they got to kind of relate to each other at the end based on that. Wild. 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 But yeah, everything about the scene, like, just so freaking cool. And then even the way that the gavel, like, extends and nearly, like, nut shots Yuji, like, it was, like, freaking Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like, Toontown. Crazy times. Just so wild. And then Yuji just, like, going back and forth, the use of the spotlight. That was really cool. Loved that. All that was so cool. And he's like, you lost the ability to control cursed energy. Like, the way he, like, monologues in this scene, you would have thought that he had been a jujutsu sorcerer for, like, years. The way he automatically knew just how to use it and how to understand how the curse techniques and everything worked. Crazy. He's like, he's using his natural physical prowess, not his might as a sorcerer. The way he described Yuji as a doll, I'm kind of like, well, we've talked about the cursed dolls with Panda and Yaga, and, you know, we've got the cursed womb paintings, and all kind of adding up. You know, we've talked about those connections earlier on in this season, and it's getting brought up again. Funny times. But yeah, it was such a good battle. Such a freaking good battle. And then I love the giant mallet and then Yuji just holding it up there. It feels like if Nanami had legit, like, fought against Yuji. This would kind of be, like, what the vibe would be, you know? Because Higuruma is still trying to feel him out. It's like I'm fighting an unbreakable doll. Yeah, we've talked about that. That connection, I mean... And he's like, come on, cursed energy, come back to me, please. Something that's a disadvantage for Higuruma. And I love that he thinks about it. Yuji actually used his brain and was like, I want a retrial. I love that. That you get a chance for up to 2 retrials. Meaning, you get up to 3 trials. Which is what he said you normally don't ever get. You normally never get to that 3rd trial. So theoretically, we've used 2. Theoretically, if Higuruma comes back and uses his domain expansion, either one of 2 things happen. Either it starts all over again, and Yuji's put on trial from the start all over again, and we try it all again. Or we have that one last retrial, and Yuji might be put on trial again. I don't know. Maybe it'll bring up the murders he actually committed. I don't know. But yeah. And he's like, one more time. I love it. And I love that Higuruma's kind of disappointed. He's like, oh, you figured it out, huh? So you figured it out. I wonder how many others figured it out. That's what I want to know. I wonder how many other people that fought against Higuruma figured out that you could get a retrial. Right? And honestly, it's such a cool metaphor because normally you don't think that there's a way to ask again. You just assume that you're out of time and you have to fight your way out of it. But Yuji actually thought his way into this scenario, so that was kind of cool. As long as the target judged guilty, as long as the target judged guilty and penalized by the judge man, they could demand up to 2 retrials, and the judge man cannot refuse them. And he's like, all right, one more time. But then the judge man brings up accused of mass murder on Shibuya on October 31st, 2018. Wow, so that was just a year after. That was 1 year. That was like a year after the pachinko parlor. 1 year after Yuji was just having a cute, normal little life. And then he was in Shibuya where mass murder was happening. Why you do that, Gege? Why you do that? Why you make that contrast so huge, right? And the thing that gets me is that Yuji was like, did not even deny it. No, quiet. He's like, no. He says, yeah, I killed them. That I want to get the shot of Higuruma's face because it's crazy. In that moment, He's like, that's not a lie, and I won't deny it. Yeah. That... I think Higuruma was like, that's such a severe thing that he's like, I think Higuruma thought he would say anything else. He would either be in silence, which would prove his guilt, or he would deny it because it's such a serious accusation. And Higuruma knew that he didn't actually commit the crime. It was Sukuna. He knew this somehow. Somehow he knew this. How? But he knew it. So for Yuuji just to admit it, I think that really struck a nerve with Higuruma and connected to Higuruma and his own guilt and his own projection. And he's like, but you, what? I love that expression. And then the judge man just freaks the fuck out. That's so terrifying. Guilty. It looks like the damn... That's so terrifying. So scary. Why? And then it says death penalty. And Yuuji just seems so ready for it. The thing that sucks is that Yuuji believes that Yuuji believes he deserves to die for what Sukuna did. Because it was by his own hands. Whether it was his fault or not, Yuuji still feels responsible. And that's so freaking sad. Nope. And then we cut back to Higuruma, like, as he's contemplating this little man. He's so cute. Yep. I've submitted the proposal. He's like, no, it's not about that. I saw the documents. They were wonderful. Good enough to be used as is for sentencing. You wanted to be either a public prosecutor or a defense attorney. And he's like, well, why don't you try becoming a judge? And that's the thing. Like, I think that Higuruma wanted to try and make a difference. And he didn't want to just climb up the ladder because he knew what he would be facing him. He would just, again, it's kind of like, I feel like Higuruma in some sense wanted to try to go against being a cog in the machine. Because if you're a judge, and we know how Japan's legal system works, then being a judge, you're not really changing anything. You're just going along with the system. And at least as a defense attorney, he could try to make a difference and maybe change things up. But then as it turns out, he ends up becoming a cog in the machine anyway. So that's, and he's so mad. He's like, why would you admit that? I freaking love that it becomes, he's not only extremely hot, smart, talented, he gets a badass sword of light too, like a freaking archangel. What is this? The executioner's sword? What? Not fair. Too much power. Too much power. Gege gave him too much power. A death penalty accompanied by confiscation. So yeah, so basically if you get touched by the executioner's sword, you're dead. I mean, this is a very handy object to have and a handy part of the domain expansion. So look, all we gotta do is get Kenjaku into this. We just gotta get Kenjaku into this executioner's domain that Higuruma has and have Kenjaku like stand for his crimes, and we got this. We got this. We just gotta get Kenjaku in Higuruma's circle, let him use domain expansion, talk about his crimes of killing all them Death Moon paintings, and we got this. We're gonna solve the whole series with Higuruma. We got this. It's all gonna work out. But yeah. It makes it impossible for them to use their technique. Yeah. And the execution sword, anyone cut by it will, without exception, meet their death. Unless he chooses not to use it. Damn. The weakness of victims, the weakness of criminals. I was so fed up. They're so ugly. It's what I started to think every time I tried to help someone. And it's just like that weakness of Yuuji in that moment. He's like, you're the same, Yuuji. Yep. All people are weak and ugly. No matter how much you long for them to have noble souls. I'm like, did this man die? And he's like, there's nothing for you down that path. The darkness before you is just that. And Yuji's like, yeah, I know. Even if you shine a light on it, you'll just find blinding nothingness. I'm like, are you projecting much, sir? And Yuji's like, look, I ain't got nothing else to do then. Also, you know what? The fact that, before we get to it, Higuruma's saying he's sorry, but he won't become a judge. Nope. And then Yuji's like, okay, I'm going to create a distraction. And while I create this distraction, Higuruma remembers him being asked why not become a judge. He's like, all people are weak and ugly. I love this, just like flying through all the desks. I'm not interested in promotions. I'm not cut out for it. However, it's the however, at the time. Yep, at least up until that moment. I believed that very depravity, which no other creature possessed, was meant to be cherished. He's like, I felt like there was a reason that people felt that way, then that which makes us human needed to be celebrated. Why? Like, he believed in it. Yeah. Damn. And, Yuji! Why did you admit guilt? The evidence that the judgment submits. Okay. Is shared with the sorcerer before it is opened. Oh, okay. Okay, so that was the extra evidence. I love that as he's there with the executioner's sword and all the shadows are coming off of Yuji there. That's so cool. So he did get the evidence before it was opened. Yep. He's like, the evidence he provided was about the demon harbored inside of you called Sukuna. Okay, so that's how he knew. All right. Yep. And it was his fault. So you didn't kill them. Oh, I love that. Is like, he's blinded by that light and Yuji's eyes are so wide open in that moment. Such a damn good scene. So why? And I thought that Yuji showing his giant, like, Megumi's like, well, F my drag, I wish I was here. Megumi's like, I wish I could have seen this. Thanks a lot, guys. Yuji's over here in fan service mode, showing his perfect abdomen and like perfect upper torso. I thought, in my mind, that was a signal that Sukuna was about to come out. Because usually when Yuji starts getting naked, that's when Sukuna is about to make a little appearance. That's what I thought was going to happen. So I thought he was going to get nicked with the sword and Sukuna was going to come out and make this a whole lot worse than it already was. But here's the hilarious thing. Yuji's like in full-on fan service mode, chesticles and abs out. And meanwhile, Megumi is standing in front of a beautifully chiseled man with a receipt jacket. And Remy being like, why am I here? God, it's great. It's so good! And then he, at the last moment, damn Yuji, makes it disappear. And Yuji's like, wait, what? Yuji's like, I was ready to be, like, slain. Oh. Damn. I freaking love Higuruma. I love him so much. I love Higuruma so much, y'all. Why is he already going? No. And that's when he says Article 39, Clause 1. He stopped the moment he realized, because he can't help it. Even when he's a prosecuting attorney, the moment he finds a way to clear the defendant, he decides to use it. You were deprived of sound judgment and control of your actions. So in Shibuya, Sukuna had taken control of your body. And he's like, how do you know about Sukuna? And then, yeah, you lacked control of your own actions. You're innocent. And he says, even so, it's still my fault. Ugh. And I like the Higuruma's like, damn it. He's like, why'd you release your technique? And he's like, well, I returned to my roots of being a defense attorney instead of a prosecutor and a judge. He's such a good character. I love him. I don't want him to die. Don't let anything bad happen to this man. No. He's like, there may still be plenty of people that are weak like you. And he's like, but have a seat. I'm going to give you my points. And he's like, put some clothes on, kid. I love that they just pull up a chair next to one another. They just pull up the seat here. Like, that's it. They just pull up the seat and they just talk straight face to face. Like, that's what I wanted from the beginning. I could listen to this all day long. Have you ever killed someone of your own volition? And he's like, yeah, I have. He's like, I have done that. And I like that there's just a silence for a moment. And then he's like, okay, I see. And then he says, it felt absolutely awful, didn't it? It's so sad. Ugh. Like, I love the two of them commiserating and connecting based on that fact of them both having killed someone. But, so Kogani has added a rule. Rule number 10. We're going to make it possible for players to transfer points. Here's the thing. That rule is going to be notified to everyone. So Reggie and Megumi and Remy will find out very soon. And then they'll probably determine that Yuji's met up with Higuruma. So we'll be able to put that together. So rule number 10 is that now we can transfer points. Ta-da! Yuji now has 1 point. And Higuruma has still his 2. I like that he kept his 2 points to show what he had done. Yep. I also like the stage where it's just the two people having a conversation. And it's like, I like how the stage started out as this big theatrical thing. But then now that you look at it, it's so small. Like, it started out as this big, grand stage show. And then at the very end, when the theater's halfway destroyed, you see how small and narrow the stage is and how it's not big at all. Gege. Mappa. So, yeah. He's like, of course, this should count towards the change in points rule mentioned in Rule 8. He's like, it should be a subsect. I like that his little Kogani has a little mustache, like a vaudeville villain. Like, what? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. And he's like, approved. Like, what? Insane. Yep. Insane. Okay. And Yuji's like, well, that was nice. And he's like, hey, you're OP. Do you want to, like, help us out? Now neither of us have to worry. He's like, you could help us. He says, my remaining 2 points are from the judge and the prosecutor that I killed before coming to Tokyo. And once the barriers open up, I think I might turn myself in. Ugh. And he's like, until then, I'll think about what I should do. I don't want him to, I don't want him to turn himself in. I know, but, Higuruma, you should stay and help out a little bit. And he says, if I stay with you, I'll probably hate myself even more. No, don't say that. Look. People, sometimes you just stick around Yuji and you probably won't hate yourself as much. Right? No, don't do that. Ah! Anyway, he's like, I'm not criticizing you. I don't want him to leave! So mean. That's so cruel. I don't even like that. No, why? Why is he already out of the picture? I hate it. This was such a good episode, but I do not believe this is the last that we've seen of Higuruma. I do not believe that it is. There's no way. I don't know what Gege is going to do to give us more of him, but his entire his journey as a defense attorney and feeling just completely against the odds and feeling like he's completely just deteriorated in terms of his morals and in terms of his purpose. And then for Yuji, because of course Yuji uses freaking Care Bear stare. Of course he would. And his earnestness to win him over. Freaking loved it. Amazing. Ugh. And I think we only have 3 episodes left. 10, 11, and 12 until this core is done. And we'll probably have to wait. So What the fudge, show? Anyway, I love this episode a lot. There's a lot of action, a lot of fun stuff going on, and I'm really excited to hear your thoughts down below. So, with that being said, we've added a new rule. Yay! Now, what could happen next? I'm sure we're going to go back to Megumi and Reggie, so maybe I wore this too soon, but oh well. Anyway, I'm curious to hear your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon, y'all, with episode 10 of Jujutsu Kaisen. And I'll see you again. Viva la Higuruma! Ciao.